I said, you know, I'll be happy if it's just Buddy Holly. I appreciate it, and I'm honored that I'm going to be there too, but my thought right away was, it's enough with Buddy's name in there.
Buddy Holly was more than a rock and roll star. He was a trailblazer who changed the music industry forever. His unique sound and daring spirit set him apart, inspiring generations of artists. But after his sudden death, surprising truths and hidden stories about his life began to emerge, leaving the world in shock. From turbulent relationships to behind-the-scenes drama, Buddy's story takes unexpected turns. How could so much about his life remain hidden for so long? Join us as we uncover the incredible highs, heartbreaking lows, and untold secrets of Buddy Holly's life and legacy. Secrets behind the music. The tragic plane crash on February 3, 1959, cut Buddy Holly's life short and left fans devastated. But what many didn't know was that his life, was more complicated than his music suggested. In the summer of 1958, Buddy Holly met Maria Elena Santiago, a young woman working as a receptionist in New York. Their meeting was accidental, but happily so. And within hours of their first date, Buddy had already proposed. For Maria Elena, this wasn't just a romance. It was a leap of faith. Their love story seemed like a fairy tale when they married just 2 months later. But beneath the surface, life was anything but perfect. Keep watching as we dive into the lesser-known truths that came to light after his death. Shortly after tying the knot, Buddy brought Maria Elena on tour. This decision broke the unwritten rule of the music industry. Wives weren't meant to be part of the band's travels. There was unrest among the group, and Buddy tried to calm things down. Still, Maria Elena became a key part of his professional life, helping with promotional efforts and offering support during challenging times.
Norman was handling the finances, and I told Buddy, you know, we're married. We need to learn to manage our money, so we need to go to Norman Petty.
When Buddy died, Maria Elena was pregnant. Tragically, she lost the baby shortly after hearing the shocking news of his death. This heart-wrenching detail was one of many that showed the unseen cost of fame and tragedy in Buddy's life. One of the most controversial aspects of his career was his relationship with Norman Petty, his manager and producer. At first, Petty seemed like a mentor. He helped Buddy and his band, the Crickets, refine their sound and reach national fame. But over time, cracks began to appear in their partnership. Petty had control over the band's finances, a decision that Buddy trusted at the start. However, suspicions grew when the royalties weren't adding up. Petty had been withholding money from the band, keeping the earnings under his name rather than distributing them fairly. Buddy, who had grown increasingly frustrated, finally decided to confront Petty. Maria Elena stood by his side as they demanded answers. Petty reportedly told Buddy he'd never see the money unless he ended his marriage, further fueling the tension between them. This betrayal pushed Buddy to sever ties with both Petty and the Crickets. It was a bold move, but it also left Buddy financially strapped as he tried to rebuild his career. The stress of these financial woes would later influence some of the risky decisions that led to his untimely death. But that's not the end of the story. There's more to uncover about the relationships that shaped his life. Peggy Sue is one of Buddy Holly's most iconic songs, but the story behind it is far more complicated than most people realize. Peggy Sue Gerron wasn't just a name in a song. She was deeply connected to Buddy's world. At the time, she was dating Jerry Allison, the Crickets drummer, and later became his wife. What fans didn't know was that Buddy and Peggy Sue shared a unique bond. While they weren't romantically involved, There were whispers of flirtation and emotional closeness. Some even speculated that Buddy had written parts of the song directly inspired by his feelings for her. However, these rumors created tension among the band members, especially as Jerry and Peggy Sue's relationship had its own struggles. Buddy's determination to succeed was undeniable, but his decisions often bordered on risky. The Winter Dance Party Tour in 1959 was grueling, with harsh weather and long drives. Frustrated by the conditions, Buddy made a fateful decision. He chartered a small plane to cut down on travel time. The crash that followed claimed his life, along with the lives of fellow musicians.
Memory and music alive. There's no words to express my sincere gratitude to all of them. I know Buddy is looking down and saying, thanks to all of you for bestowing this honor.
Richie Valens and the Big Bopper. Maria Elena believed Buddy's impulsive nature played a role in the tragedy. She carried guilt, thinking her presence might have dissuaded him from taking the flight. After Buddy's death, Maria Elena pushed for changes in how authorities handle accident notifications. Her heartbreaking experience, learning about his death from the news, led to reforms ensuring families are notified before victims' names are made public. These events reveal the human side of Buddy Holly, a man driven by passion but burdened by pressures both personal and professional. But this is just the beginning. Keep watching as we uncover even more secrets about his life and legacy, betrayal and struggles. Behind the spotlight. Buddy Holly's rise to fame was swift, but the pressures and challenges that came with it were equally relentless. He was just 22 years old when he died, yet his short life was marked by a series of betrayals that revealed the darker side of the music industry. Some of these secrets only came to light after his passing, exposing a web of deceit that could have derailed even the strongest spirits. One of the challenges came from Buddy's record label. Coral Records had been instrumental in distributing his music.
School, but when Buddy was on tour with, with all the guys, like, you had to act as like a go-between, didn't you? For like,
well, actually, when we were on tour, there was also black entertainers.
But their commitment to him wasn't as genuine as it appeared. After Buddy left the Crickets, Coral Records began focusing on promoting other artists, leaving him to fend for himself. Buddy wanted to experiment with new sounds and ideas, which the label didn't fully support. His creative vision didn't align with their priorities, which were driven by commercial success rather than artistic innovation. Left with little choice, Buddy began funding his own recordings. He rented studio time in New York and poured his savings into producing music the way he wanted it. While this independence was admirable, it also drained his finances, leaving him vulnerable in a competitive industry. What's more, Coral Records continued to profit from Buddy's earlier work with the Crickets, even after he went solo. The royalties from hits like "That'll Be the Day" kept flowing, but Buddy saw very little of it. This lack of financial support only deepened the frustrations he faced during the final months of his life. Touring was a double-edged sword for Buddy Holly. On one hand, it allowed him to connect with fans and solidify his place as a rock and roll icon. On the other, it took a heavy toll on his physical and mental health. The Winter Dance Party Tour, which would ultimately be his last, was particularly grueling. The tour's schedule was chaotic, with concerts booked in cities hundreds of miles apart. The band traveled in freezing buses with little to no heating, which often broke down on desolate roads. Buddy's frustration grew with each passing day. He was determined to keep the show going, but the harsh conditions wore him down. The promoters behind the tour had prioritized profit over the well-being of the musicians. Venues were overbooked, travel arrangements were disorganized, and the artists were left to bear the brunt of these poor decisions. Buddy's determination to honor his commitments kept him going. But those close to him later revealed how drained he had become during the tour. Before his death, Buddy recorded several tracks that would later become iconic. But the story behind these recordings is both inspiring and heartbreaking. Many of these songs were created in Buddy's New York apartment, where he had set up a makeshift studio. Using nothing more than basic recording equipment, he poured his heart into every track. After Buddy's death, one of the most contentious issues was the control of his unreleased music. Several companies wanted to profit from his work, but Maria Elena was determined to ensure that his legacy was preserved with integrity. She refused to let Buddy's music be exploited for quick financial gain, even if it meant enduring lengthy legal battles.
How long have you been singing? Well, I've been singing really professionally only about a year or so. But I started singing really when I was
The fight wasn't just about money. It was about preserving Buddy's artistic vision. Maria Elena wanted the world to remember Buddy as more than just a rock and roll star. She saw him as a pioneer who had paved the way for countless artists who followed. Her efforts eventually paid off, but the years of legal wrangling took an emotional toll on her and Buddy's family. Buddy Holly's death sent shockwaves through the music world, but it also left a void in the lives of those who knew him best. Friends and collaborators shared stories about Buddy's generosity and determination, painting a picture of a man who was deeply committed to his craft. One of his closest friends, Waylon Jennings, carried a burden of guilt for years after Buddy's death. Jennings had been a member of Buddy's touring band and had given up his seat on the fateful flight to the Big Bopper. Though Jennings went on to have a successful career of his own, he often spoke about how Buddy's death haunted him. Another lesser-known story involves guitarist Tommy Allsup, who lost his seat on the plane after flipping a coin with Richie Valens. This seemingly trivial moment would change his life forever, as he was spared from the tragedy that claimed Buddy's life. Both Jennings and Allsup later reflected on how that night shaped their careers and their memories of Buddy. Buddy's music may have reached millions, but his kindness and dedication left an equally lasting impression on those who worked alongside him. Keep watching to find out more. Secrets of Love and Loss. Buddy Holly's life wasn't just about music. It was also filled with personal connections and emotional challenges that shaped his journey. Among these, his whirlwind romance with Maria Elena Santiago stood out as a story of love, heartbreak, and unexpected revelations that surfaced only after his death. Their marriage brought stability to Buddy during his busiest years. Maria often traveled with him, offering support as he navigated the demanding world of rock and roll. However, their happiness was short-lived. Buddy's sudden death didn't just devastate Maria, it also created rifts within his family. His parents, Lawrence and Ella, were heartbroken, but their grief soon turned into frustration over how Buddy's legacy was being handled. Some family members felt excluded from important decisions, especially when it came to his music and estate. The tension between Maria and Buddy's family grew as time went on. Maria, as Buddy's widow, took on the responsibility of managing his affairs, but not everyone supported her efforts. Some accused her of being too controlling, while others felt she was trying to erase their contributions to Buddy's success. These disagreements often played out behind closed doors, but they left lasting scars on those involved. For Maria, it was a painful reminder of how fame could complicate even the most personal relationships. Years after Buddy's death, a surprising discovery revealed a deeply personal side of the rock and roll icon that few had ever seen. Maria Elena has often shared how much the times they spent together meant to her, emphasizing the deep connection they had despite the pressures of his fame. In an interview with The Telegraph, she reflected on this, recalling the profound impact of his music and the love they shared. Additionally, in an article for Fretboard Journal, Maria Elena discussed the lasting memories of their time together, revealing how much Buddy's love and legacy continue to influence her life. These personal insights into their relationship paint a picture of a man who, beyond his iconic status, was profoundly human and deeply in love. Another strained relationship was with the Crickets, the band Buddy had founded. When he decided to go solo, it wasn't just a professional split. It was a personal one, too. Some band members felt abandoned, while Buddy struggled with the guilt of leaving behind the group that had helped launch his career. These conflicts didn't just end with Buddy's death. They continued to influence how his legacy was remembered, with various parties vying for recognition and control over his music. Before his death, Buddy had been working on a song that would remain incomplete. The lyrics hinted at themes of longing and regret, suggesting that Buddy may have been grappling with unresolved emotions during his final days. Though the song was never finished, it became a symbol of the potential Buddy still had. Fans and musicians alike have speculated about what he might have achieved if he had lived longer. This unfinished work shows how much was lost when Buddy's life was cut short. What makes this story even more intriguing is how the song's fragment has been interpreted over the years. Some believe it was meant as a love letter to Maria, while others see it as a reflection of Buddy's struggles with fame. Whatever the truth may be, the song remains one of the most interesting pieces of his legacy. The mysteries left behind. Buddy Holly's death left behind a trail of unanswered questions and mysteries that continue to fascinate fans and historians. While his music shaped the early days of rock and roll, the events surrounding his tragic end and the years that followed offer even more to explore. What's less talked about is what happened to the tour after Buddy's death. The remaining musicians were left to grapple with the shock while still being expected to perform. Dion DiMucci, who had declined the fateful flight due to the cost, later shared how the tragedy overshadowed the rest of the tour. Performers struggled to keep the shows going, knowing they'd lost 3 of their own. The tour continued, but never recovered its original spirit. It became a painful reminder of how quickly fame and life could slip away. Some even wondered if the relentless tour schedule itself had indirectly contributed to the tragedy. The crash was officially ruled an accident caused by bad weather and pilot error. But over the years, alternative theories have emerged, keeping the mystery alive. One theory suggests that there may have been mechanical issues with the plane that were overlooked. Others claim that the weight of the passengers and their luggage exceeded the aircraft's limits, causing it to lose stability. Even more sensationally, some have speculated about possible foul play, though no evidence has ever supported this idea. These theories often resurface in documentaries and fan discussions, highlighting the public's inability to fully accept the simplicity of the official explanation. The crash remains a topic of fascination, with each new generation adding its own speculations. Another curious detail is the disappearance of some personal items belonging to Buddy and the others. Reports from the crash site noted that certain belongings were never recovered. For instance, Buddy's iconic glasses were initially believed to be lost, only to resurface years later in a county sheriff's evidence room. The reappearance of these glasses, along with other items, raised questions about how the crash was handled. Were there mistakes in the investigation? Or were some things deliberately withheld? While it's likely that these discrepancies were unintentional, they've added an air of mystery to an already tragic story. Buddy's untimely death sparked a wave of grief among fans, some of whom went to extraordinary lengths to keep his memory alive. In the months after the crash, fans from across the world sent letters, flowers, and other tributes to Buddy's family and widow. Some fans wrote songs, poems, and even books inspired by his life and music. These acts of devotion not only showed how deeply Buddy had touched people's lives, but also underscored the enduring power of his story. Even today, fans gather annually in Clear Lake, Iowa, near the crash site, to celebrate Buddy's legacy during the Winter Dance Party tribute event. The festival has become a place where people of all ages come together to remember a man who, despite his short life, left an indelible mark on the world. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is what Buddy Holly might have accomplished had he lived longer. At just 22 years old, he had already revolutionized rock and roll with his innovative songwriting and unique sound. Some believe he would have gone on to influence genres like folk and country, while others think he might have become a producer, helping younger artists find their voice. Buddy's willingness to experiment with new sounds and recording techniques hinted at a future filled with groundbreaking work. He was among the first to use orchestral arrangements in rock music, a move that inspired later artists like the Beatles. Fans and historians often wonder how his contributions might have shaped the 1960s and beyond. Though we'll never know what Buddy's future might have looked like, his influence can still be felt in the music industry today. Artists from Bob Dylan to Bruce Springsteen have cited Buddy as an inspiration, proving that his legacy extends far beyond his brief time on Earth. For those closest to Buddy, the lack of closure remains one of the hardest parts of his loss. His family, friends, and fellow musicians were left to navigate a world without him, each dealing with their grief in their own way. But even with these efforts, the sense of what if lingers. What if Buddy had taken a different bus that night? What if the plane had never left the ground? These unanswered questions have become a part of his story, adding a bittersweet layer to his enduring legend. Which part of his story surprised you the most? Did you learn something new about his life today? Let us know in the comments below. And remember to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories. Click on the video on your screen now. You'll love what's next. Love what's next. Love what's next.